What's good, nerds? Happy Wednesday, right? Yeah, usually that's when I'm live. Good to be here. We have a lot to talk about today, but before we get started with that, I do actually have a fun guest joining us. Talk a little bit about all the WordPress drama.
So I'm so invested in all of this WordPress drama. These billionaires going at it, acting like the startup of a company that has like 8 employees. So I feel like I know very little about all of this. And I want you, and I'm putting you in a hard spot here because I'm sure that both sides probably very much want you to give a very specific take. But I want you to tell me what's the drama. If you had to kind of break it out into like 3 or 4 paragraphs, if you would.
3 or 4 paragraphs. That's a weird amount because the details of this are so strange. We're like, I could give like a 3-sentence summary and I can give like a 3-hour summary, but that in between is difficult.
Yeah, that's what we look for here. We look for the difficult, not like these guys don't like each other. I want them more, just enough to like incriminate yourself, you know?
Yeah. People asking for an intro for Dan. That's probably a good idea. Intro yourself so people know who you are.
Sure. So, hey, I'm Dan Can't Stream. You can find me on YouTube at youtube.com/Dan Can't Stream. I've been a tech guy for a long time. I made a company called Tiny Chat a million years ago. If you guys ever heard of that, very similar to
old, but they're not that old.
Very similar to the product we're using right now, but wildly successful. Oh my God, so many investors and users. It was crazy. And now I've done a few startups in between there as well. Some successful, some not. Now my main company is called Redact.dev and is pretty much the only software solution out there right now that lets you manage and mass delete your content across 30 different services like Twitter, Reddit, Facebook, etc. And then, obviously I do entertainment stuff, a lot of politics and whatnot. But overall, really funny, great guy, super cool. Everyone loves hanging out with me. That's just what I'm told. So, yeah, there you go.
I can confirm at least some of those details.
Yeah. We're going to leave it up to your imagination which one is which on that.
I also filmed a random one-off. I don't even know what we would call the thing I filmed with you on that couch with the horrible audio, but it's on your channel. Yep. It's fun. A lot of interesting back and forths there, to say the least.
Yeah, I had a great time personally. So I don't know. Maybe you were miserable, but,
Someone in chat said you help with designing podcast setups.
Oh, that is true. I'm something of an audio expert, as you can tell from that video. But I mean, to be fair, that was like an Alibaba $10 mic lapel thing that I never thought I would use, and I had to scramble to grab it. So, no worries on that.
He's the main guy for excuses if you're looking for those. If you want a reason that you can blame for things not working, he's really good to keep around.
Especially if you don't want to blame someone else because you're like kind of parasocial and you like them. I'm your man. That's it. Okay. So tell me, WordPress. I'm familiar with it. I was, little known fact, okay, before it was WordPress, it was Cafe Press. Before it was Cafe Press, it was called B2. I'm so old, I was one of the first 20 people using that, and I have the proof, okay? So I was there before Matt, okay? I was there before anyone using WordPress. Like when from the meme, I was there, don't quote the sacred scrolls. I was there when the mission was originally created. So anyways, I know what WordPress is. I know who Matt is. And I know what sites, I assume like WordPress engine and other WordPress hosts do is they host WordPress content. That's all I know. Mm-hmm. And now I know that they're fighting. They're mad. And I want to know why.
Yeah, that's saying it lightly. They're very upset. So how do I start this one? So
from the beginning.
From the very beginning. So there was a man and a woman who loved each other very much, and somehow Matt Mullenweg came out.
Maybe not that early, a little bit later.
So the first important piece is the weird relationship between WordPress.org, WordPress.com, and the WordPress Foundation. Okay. WordPress.com is owned by Automatic, which is the company that Matt started to do all the hosting and planning stuff around WordPress.
Sure.
But WordPress was also an open source project, GPL licensed. So when people started being concerned about that, they decided to separate the two projects. So
separate how? Legally or like different dev teams? Totally not the same.
Legally,
stuff anymore.
Almost entirely legally. The overlap gets really blurry. So the WordPress Foundation was formed as an open foundation to protect WordPress's interests and the trademark. The WordPress trademark was transferred from Automattic to the WordPress Foundation. WordPress.org was pulled out of Automattic and is now solely owned by Matt, but it is not owned or meaningfully operated by the WordPress Foundation.
So what is WordPress.org?
WordPress.org is the hosting platform. So it's what
I thought that's
hosting platform. It's the admin panel plus like the package registry. So when people are doing upgrades to their WordPress site, specifically their packages, WordPress.org is the thing that manages all the packages, lets them do those upgrades, gives them an admin panel to update their site from, all of that for WordPress sites.
So it's kind of like it's kind of like a shitty cPanel for WordPress.
Yes.
Oh, okay. And that's like its own. Is that a company or is that just a provided gratis type of thing?
It's a provided gratis type of thing. But the big piece is that it's also their equivalent of like NPM, where it's their registry for all plugins. So even if you're using your own like panel and your own hosting, you would still use WordPress.org as the way to get and update your plugins, which is a really big deal because it allowed for security updates to go from miserable to trivial, which is a huge part of why the WordPress ecosystem has stopped getting hacked all of the fucking time.
Yeah, WordPress was pretty bad for quite a while. That was a frisky platform to be on. But okay, I think I got it. So you have WordPress.com, which is a commercial for-profit enterprise that does primarily hosting of WordPress websites and probably domain registration and upselling all sorts of random bullshit like email and whatnot. You have the WordPress Foundation, I assume, which is in charge of maintaining the code of WordPress. And
just the trademark.
Just the trademark.
And hosting WordCamp, which is their yearly conference about WordPress.
Okay, so we don't care about them then.
Yes.
Okay, and then we have WordPress.org, who maintains the code base.
The code base is maintained by whoever,
everyone.
But
it's open source.
Yeah, it's open source, but it's BDFL, so it's run by Matt. All decisions go through Matt directly.
Okay, so WordPress.org is basically their main purpose is that they own the cPanel where all the plugins go, and they have exclusive authoritarian rights to that, and no one can outvote them or do anything about it. It
is also open source, so theoretically someone could host a mirror of it, but no one does because it's like, why would you host a mirror of NPM or any of these gigantic registries? There's the open registry. So,
all right.
Yeah,
I'm with you.
The real fun detail that makes all of this go from dumb to just insane is that the trademark was transferred to the WordPress Foundation so they could be separate, not part of the like commercial automatic product, and to like be tax separation for that.
And I guess the idea behind that also is that anyone could use the term WordPress without fear because now you have some public benefit corporation that owns it and is letting anyone call themselves. Go ahead.
And here is where the paper cuts really start.
Ooh.
When the transfer of the WordPress trademark happened from Automattic to the WordPress Foundation, they granted an exclusive commercial license to Automattic so that they can redistribute it. So if you want a commercial license to use the WordPress trademark or mark at all in your like homepage, you have to pay a license fee to Automattic because they were granted an exclusive commercial license fee or a commercial license access and control to the trademark. So even though the trademark is owned by the WordPress Foundation, its commercial usage is exclusively controlled by Automattic.
So why would the foundation do this if it's not like I assume that it has, if it's acting as a public benefit corporation or if it's acting as a nonprofit, it should act in it should have a charter of how it's supposed to act. It's supposed to act in the benefit of all users of WordPress, or it's supposed to act to the, different public benefit corporations can have different goals and motives. So what is the reasoning that this was done? Because this doesn't seem like this is for the public benefit to do that.
That board believes it's for the public benefit to do it.
Okay, so that board, who's the board made up of the public
I forgot the specific names of people, but when I asked, they did not have financial ties to either Automattic or like control of the license for WordPress. So it's a 3-person board. It's Matt and then 2 other people that he elected. One's like a journalist. One is, forgot their name, but there's the 3 people, one of which is Matt. And the other 2 could vote to take the trademark away and do something else with it, but they haven't.
Okay. So basically, understood. So now you have to have, I got it. So that's not good, right? That happened, obviously. Okay. All right. So that's the first paper cut.
That's the first
number
paper
2?
Cut. So over the last 14 or so years, there's been random drama every 4 to 5 years of Matt getting a little petty with somebody, usually over what he perceives as a slight to the WordPress community. The first big one was around a theme named Thesis and a set of themes. I forgot the name of the dev who made them, but somebody was making paid themes for WordPress.
Okay. Little
And
known
Matt,
fact. I used to own one of the biggest theming websites for WordPress back before it mattered, but that's okay. Just go ahead.
so Matt was upset because he felt as though these themes were violations of the GPL because they had to use some PHP code that was part of the GPL licensed WordPress like product or project in order to make a theme. So charging for themes was a violation of the GPL. And Matt got real petty about this. Yes.
I thought the GPL was that you had to release any changes that you did to your code.
Yes. He didn't open source the code that he made for the paid plugin.
Okay. So the paid plugin, which did the theme author that they made, what was the paid plugin that he did?
The theme plugin, whatever. It was like the theme code was not open sourced because he wanted to charge for the theme.
Okay. I understand. So
and Matt like just went full nuclear on this random dude.
Wait, is the idea that you can't have obfuscated JavaScript?
No, it's not even JavaScript. It's the PHP code specifically. So the PHP code.
So like Ion code or Zencube.
Yeah,
or
any of that he believes would need to be open sourced because it is all based on the GPL licensed like theming engine in WordPress. So building around that at all would be something he would consider to or like would have to be open source.
Ooh, that's an interesting legal question because I want you to imagine a world where I make DanPress, okay? Really cool software. You should check it out. And one of the great things about it, just like people that make I know the guy who actually made like a tool for uploading stuff and it uses the same API as something else. Anyways, the thought there is, let's say I made DanPress and DanPress was completely compatible with themes for WordPress, right? The same function names, the same everything. And my stuff was not GPL at all. Totally different code, okay? It's just I use the same variables, everything along those lines. Would your themes have to now, just because they are compatible with WordPress, all of a sudden fall under their license just because it can be used by it?
If it could reasonably be believed that the starting point was close enough to a starting point from their open source project with open source examples of themes, yes. The thing I got him to cave on when I brought this up in the interview because I was really upset about this. I got him to agree that if they had open sourced just the PHP side and kept all of the CSS gated behind a paywall, he would have been okay with that, supposedly.
Well, that doesn't make sense, right? Because obviously the CSS and JavaScript, it's not so easy to keep that from getting pirated. But the PHP, I mean, I don't know how good IonCube and whatever the fuck people are using these days for encoding PHP is. But back in my day, it was quite difficult to, like, you could get around it. Sometimes, like, you could pirate stuff. But, like, as far as you couldn't edit the code. You couldn't, like, go in there and make changes or do anything along those lines. So it would seem kind of pointless to try and protect HTML and JavaScript. That's kind of a fool's errand. Like, you can obfuscate it, but yeah.
Yeah, it's messy.
Okay.
So Matt got real petty with that one. He went as far as spending over $100,000 on the domain thesis.com just so that the guy who made the theme couldn't have it.
Interesting. I like this guy for his pettiness. I also am very petty. So I respect the hustle that you could be worth, however billions of dollars or whatever this guy is and still be like me. That gives me hope that someday if I become that rich, I too will stoop down and still be arguing with people and tweets and things like that. I hope that I don't lose my way, but we'll see. Anyways, continue.
Thankfully, you don't have to worry about being that rich anytime soon, Dan.
Yeah, we'll see who gets there first, fucker.
Anyways, so Matt gets in a few of these spats, but admittedly not too many, and the rest aren't that big. Like, that one was pretty big. He had some form of spat with GoDaddy. I don't know much in terms of the details. He also had one with Bluehost, but he came to agreements with them.
Because both of these guys offer hosting of WordPress.
Yes.
Okay.
Eventually settles with all of them. The details are not clear, but it seems as though they're paying some type of fee to Automatic in order to use the WordPress brand all over their stuff.
Okay.
Yep. Another important detail of how Matt runs WordPress is he has this thing called 5 for the Future, which is that any business meaningfully benefiting from WordPress as part of its business success should be contributing 5% of its engineering time or revenue to WordPress back in order for it to keep growing and thriving.
Okay.
It's
getting
also
a little bit frisky.
Yep. It's also worth noting that the WordPress project has around 80% code churn year over year, which is insane that 80% of the code in the project gets touched and replaced every single year.
That doesn't sound like it's very stable. But,
yeah. They are regularly pushing to ship insane amounts of code. I was trying to figure out why they wanted all these engineering resources, and then I saw the amount of like churn there was in the code base. It's like, oh, because you're rewriting everything constantly. It's
Why
like
are they doing that?
It's like
yeah, I don't know. I feel like you would want stability in something like this, but
but instead they want a treadmill, it seems.
This reminds me of back in the day of forum software, vBulletin, Envision PowerBoard, PHP, BB. They would all have major revisions over time that they would go, okay, we're going from IPv2 to IPv3. And now we're going from IPv3 to IPv3 3.1. And it was each time it was a major shift of everything, entire new admin panel, entire new security framework, entire new front ends. Like you would have to basically do a full database import and nothing was compatible. You would need to use like new themes and So, okay, I didn't even think that was a good strategy, but okay, I'm with you. So
that's going on. They're looking for insane amounts of contributions. At the same time, WordPress.com is, I admittedly have not used any of these platforms, so I can't say from personal experience. But from my conversations,
I've tried to use WordPress, and it was fucking horrible.
Yeah,
personally.
What I have heard from basically everyone in the WordPress community is that WordPress.com is one of the least viable WordPress hosting platforms.
Let me see. When was the last time I had the misfortune of thinking I was going to create an account on there? That would have been 2022. So I don't know how much has changed since then, but
I can't imagine too much.
Okay, so all right, so it's not the best host.
It's not the best, and a lot of other platforms start spinning up to be better hosts for WordPress.
Sure.
One of which is WP Engine.
Okay.
WP Engine is a much more reasonable host. They end up like acquiring a couple people in the space and like building some stuff internally. Their two big open source contributions to WordPress are not part of like the core WordPress project. They are advanced custom fields, which is effectively necessary to use WordPress for real. Everybody I know who's using WordPress seriously is using ACF in order to actually tag the things that they're making beyond like a single linear tag field. ACF is essential. And like all the people using WordPress for SEO and all those things, like ACF is core to their entire workflow.
What is it?
Advanced custom fields. It lets you have fields in your projects that do more than just a set of tags or a body.
Okay. So back in my day, a WordPress post had like a few elements. It had the slug, the post title, the author name, and the body content. And this is, I assume, something that allows you to have very unstructured data or something as well attached. Is that right?
Yep. And it goes as far as having a better like WYSIWYG editor as well. So it's like it's the entry point most non-devs have for using WordPress for things other than a crappy little blog.
Okay. Gotcha.
Yeah. So ACF is probably, I think it has like 2 million plus installs. It's one of the, I think it's the biggest WordPress plugin if I recall.
Okay, so it's basically like WYSIWYG on steroids a little bit?
Yes, WYSIWYG on steroids with the ability to add custom fields to your like post types.
Okay, sure. Yep. Got it.
Basically become like most people when they think of WordPress that are using it, they probably just assume ACF is part of WordPress at this point because it's so tightly tied. There's also a paid premium version. I don't know how popular it is. It's hard to find those numbers, but that plugin is essential to WordPress's long-term success.
Okay.
And
who owns ACF?
ACF was, I forgot the name of the company, but there was another company that started and owned it. And I don't know if WP Engine acquired them or is collaborating with them, but most of the funding for the plugin comes from WP Engine now.
Okay, good. All right.
And a lot of people who use it did not even know that, by the way. I talked to a bunch of people that were like, yeah, I use this plugin every day. Until it got restricted, I didn't know it was WP Engine. Until
it got restricted?
We'll get to the restrictions in a bit, don't worry. That might be a little bit further down, but yeah. So WP Engine also has WP GraphQL, which was originally started as a way to put a GraphQL layer in front of your WordPress so you can start consuming WordPress from other sources. So if you wanted to rewrite your WordPress's front end in modern tech, you could use WP GraphQL as a layer to access the data from your WordPress site in order to generate something using the more modern front end tool.
So this is like the Instagram blocks type API and all that bullshit then?
Yeah, effectively.
Huh. So, you see how smart I am? I'm so old and I still know all this new Zoomer tech. I'm so good. Anyways, go ahead. Continue.
So these things plus like WP Engine's focus on like not what WordPress the standard is, but how WordPress is actually being consumed.
Okay.
Which means they start growing relatively quickly.
Okay.
Quicker than WordPress.com, it seems.
Okay. Gotcha. So they're the big dog host now
Mhm.
that everyone likes to use.
Yes.
Okay. If there is
So,
right now a top, let's say if you have market share, let's say there's 100 people in the world that host their WordPress sites. Give me a breakdown of that. So you might say something like 30 hosts with the WordPress engine, 30 hosts with WordPress.com, 10 host themselves
Mhm.
on a dedicated server, and like 80 are with, or whatever the remaining 50 are with, random small hosts. What's that
yes.
numbers? What do you think those
I don't know. I don't know in terms of like total market share. All I know is like their revenue numbers, and I know the revenue for WP Engine is around 400 million a year.
It's what? Say that again.
WP Engine's revenue is around $400 million a year.
Okay.
I don't know what percentage of the market they have. I know that they have a larger share than WordPress.com. I don't know how much larger.
Okay. So they're bigger than WordPress.com. The two of them together, is that like, do you think the bulk of the WordPress hosting, or do you think that there's
The bulk of the
like,
money in the WordPress hosting probably, but like there are so many crappy WordPress sites being hosted for free on random things like GoDaddy or whatever.
Sure.
But in terms
Okay.
of the like profit
For revenue.
those two
Gotcha.
make the lion's share of the revenue in the space.
Basically, if you want premium hosting, essentially,
Yes.
you go to, got it, understood. Okay. Okay. Got it so far.
Yes. So Silver Lake is a VC firm that was starting to invest in the general like WordPress space. They saw an opportunity with WP Engine and I believe fully acquired them.
Okay. Silver Lake. They
they're a private
bought
equity firm.
Skype back in the day, right?
I believe so, yes.
Okay.
So they acquired WP Engine. He was saying private equity, not VC. Fair point. Yes, it's VC, or it's private equity. So private equity firm acquires WP Engine, has been running it since. It seems like Matt is very distrusting of Silver Lake in particular.
Okay.
I tried to get him to discuss a history there. He claimed that they were never potentially investing in Automatic. I personally am not sure I believe that, but
You think that Silver Lake was at one point interested?
yes,
in-
and they chose WP Engine instead. That is a personal belief. I have a little bit of info hinting at that, but
Okay.
it's hard for me to
So we're-
believe that Matt would be so hostile towards this random private equity firm without his like personal distrust of like this firm. Like there has to be some personal slight there. There has to be.
Is there no third big player? Like, I don't know, WP Blazer, and it's like, oh, they
No,
do
it's-
100 million a year. Is it really just these two?
Bluehost is the other big one, I believe,
Okay.
and they host other things too.
Okay. Gotcha.
Yeah.
I remember all these guys. Bluehost, PowWeb.
So over time, Matt got saltier and saltier about this. He spent an amount of time that he has changed when he claims it many times from previously, how do I put it? Like the timeline for how long he's been trying to get money from them varies between like 2 weeks and 2 years. I don't really know when the conversation started because the only thing he'll ever show is logs of when calls happened. But every time I tried to verify what info happened in one of those calls, it has been a bit of a mess. So
Okay.
I don't actually, I know he's been talking to WP Engine since 2022. I
Sure.
don't know what those conversations actually were.
Okay.
I know some portion of them, especially recently, has been him trying to poach the CEO of WP Engine to run WordPress.org.
.org?
Yes, from Automatic. Oh, forgot to mention that detail. The director of WordPress.org is a role at Automatic. So even though WordPress.org is a separate entity, the like full running of it is a title for VP at Automatic.
Okay. For the sake of everything, let's just assume that WordPress.org doesn't exist because basically it's WordPress.com that owns them and Matt.
Yes,
So we don't
but
need
it's
to
also
say
the-
that anymore.
Yeah, but it's also the tool that is used by every WordPress user to make sure that their plugins are secure, even if they're not on WordPress.com. So there's a huge conflict of interest here.
Okay. Yes, I can understand that. It's not
Yes.
so much a conflict of interest. It's just this is like, hey, we're open source, but not really. I mean,
Yeah.
we're open source, but you got to use our shit. Like that's kind of what it is, right?
It wasn't until very recently. Like generally speaking, WordPress.org was open and let people do what they wanted. And this is
Sure.
a huge change. And the thing that's particularly scary, the reason people are upset is it feels like the open source, like WordPress.org side, is being used as a lever to get Matt's grudges against this other company out.
Interesting. Huh.
So the conflict started because Matt felt like they were making too much money off of WordPress and not giving back to Automatic and WordPress.org. Okay. They were not meeting his bar for the 5 for the future thing. His favorite thing to complain about is to compare the number of hours a week that Automatic is spending in engineering time on WordPress versus WP Engine, and saying, look, they're only putting 40 hours a week into WordPress core. We're putting like 3,000 hours. How is that okay? How is that fair?
Well, stop rewriting the fucking shit every month, bro. Yep. You don't have, no one's making you do it. Focus on hosting.
The example I gave when I confronted him on this was, if I went and ran 40 miles every day, that doesn't mean I can make fun of everybody for not running 5 miles a day. Like, it's not fair. It's not how this works. You can't just go run an insane amount and then expect everybody else to follow your footsteps. Like, who cares? It's just weird. And nobody is meeting that bar. I asked him, like, what other companies are contributing that much code? And he's like, I don't have any issues with any of the other WordPress hosts. I'm like, okay, what companies are meeting your bar for contributing here? And he couldn't name it.
I don't even know if I feel like, I'm trying to imagine. This is such a weird spot. Like, imagine that. What's another like popular open source bullshit? Drupal? Does anyone use that anymore? I don't know. Okay.
Drupal's a bad example because they had a massive rewrite they shouldn't have done recently that broke everything for all their users. So most people are done.
Is there something open source besides WordPress that everyone uses?
Linux.
Okay. OBS. Okay. OBS. Let's imagine OBS. Cool. It seems like a very strange thing. Like, if I want to go and create a OBS hosting of download repo website, I don't need to commit code. Go fuck yourself. Mm-hmm. I like, right? Like, am I wrong here?
No,
like, that's like,
right.
Yeah. Okay. That's my thinking. Like, okay, go ahead.
The other side would be, there are things like, are you familiar with the drama with Elasticsearch and AWS at all?
No, I can probably imagine where it's going, but go ahead.
TLDR, open source project called Elasticsearch. It does a lot of like crazy things to make it so you can search large data sets.
Sure.
AWS adds this as like an AWS like service that you can pay for.
Like an S3, yeah.
Yes. And people start to think Elasticsearch, because they just call it AWS Elasticsearch. People start to think Elasticsearch is an AWS product, not this open source project. The open source project is getting like jack shit back in contributions, and Amazon's making a ton of money on it. So they made a new license called the Elastic license, which is you cannot sell this as a service. You can use this internally for whatever you want, but you cannot charge for hosting of Elasticsearch like as your own thing. Because they want like
I would imagine what would happen at that point is Amazon's like, okay, these guys fucked us. We're gonna start at the last version that didn't have this license, and then we'll throw 100 engineer, and it'll just become, we had a good run. It was free for a while. It's no longer free. Hey, dumbass squad that's over there on order fulfillment orders. You guys you're making Elasticsearch now. That's what I would do.
Exactly.
Right? And that would be like, yeah. Is that what happened? And now they're not pushing it back to the other code base?
Exactly.
Or wait. Oh, yeah. That's about what I would expect to have happen. Yeah.
This also just happened with Redis, where Redis decided they didn't want people like hosting like Redis as a service. So they made a similar license change. Redis got forked to the last version with a fork called Valkey that's being funded by Microsoft, Amazon, and a bunch of other companies. That is in a really good state now too.
You know, I just realized why I like this situation so much. Do you know what it is?
What is it?
I think of all the people. Like, I'm a Jewish guy, so I take like kind of, I'm a little bit worried about like, anti-Semitism, and there's all the stuff that I actually care less about Nazis. I hate them less than I hate open source people. I think they are the worst people on earth. Okay. In fact, part of the reason that Redact exists is because of open source people. When I, many moons ago, wanted to create software that would let people go and mass delete their content off of like 30 different services, do you know what there was? There was like 1,000 unfinished GitHub like projects out there for every single thing. All of them in like random states of disrepair. All of them like sometimes sketchy code, sometimes not. Some of them run by unknown dudes. And it was like there wasn't just one thing that worked effectively. Everyone was branching a million things. You didn't know what to do. Even now, right? If you look at the main competitors we have for certain things, they're all in like they're not updated. You risk losing your accounts because there's no company at the end. And you know what else? I hate open source people the most because they are the most entitled people I have ever met in my life. I know I am upsetting people saying this. Okay, not all of you are bad. Okay, some of you are good ones, but you know who you are. The people, the first thing that you do, you walk in. It's like you wham, kick open the door. Where's the fucking code base? And it's like, bro, chill out. Okay. Anyways, that's my experience with it. I benefit from open source stuff.
Exploded. Thanks.
I love using open source code. and I would never create it. And the worst people in the world are open source code contributors. But thank you for doing it for my capitalist needs. I love you and I appreciate you, but I will never give it anything
Most
back.
open source people are very good and very quiet. The issue is because most open source people are so quiet and there is so little visibility on the work that they do, the ones who have the most visibility tend to be the shitty ones. And that sucks. But the vast majority, like when I look at like my package JSON and any of my projects, there are thousands of people who have put so much work into getting that working. And those are what I think of when I think open source contributors. The vast majority are awesome people that are just nerdy and want better solutions to exist.
That's fine. It's the vocal ones. It's the vocal ones. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Total agreement. I absolutely. It's like Wikipedia editors. Like, I have no problem with them. Or gamers, the most oppressed class. Or landlords, the absolute most oppressed class. But anyways, that said, okay, I'm with you on all of this so far. So what you have here, it sounds like in all of these cases is you have like open source, like the guy at the top of the open source food chain who's maintaining a project. And he's like, you think you can be a billionaire off of my work? Fuck you. I'm cutting that line off. And the company's like, all right, cool. I'm just going to do it on my own. And then there's like surprise Pikachu face that their master business plan didn't work. Yeah.
Yep. Pretty much.
Okay,
so
good.
The thing that was going on here is some amount of jealousy that Matt has poured so much time into making WordPress great. And he feels as though WP Engine is benefiting unfairly off of his work.
That's all of open source stuff.
Yes. But specifically that they have WP in their name. The opening of the blog post where he condemned them was, even my mom thought WP Engine was an official WordPress thing.
Well, that's because you shouldn't own WordPress is the problem. That's not a bad thing. You should be like, hey, everyone owns WordPress. So you're right. They are. But instead it's like, yeah, I own WordPress. Okay. Without knowing anything more, and you have more to tell me, more drama, more crazy stuff. Here's what I would already do. This system for hosting plugins in the back end, fork it right now with a team. Okay. You're going to have it's going to be called Open, whatever the fuck it is.
OpenPress.
Open ACF and OpenPress. And that's it. And then you leave it behind. And then you know what? You're going to get your wish, Matt, because I bet WP Engine will throw some resources at this new one that will probably be better, because it sounds like WordPress.com is still not very good. It sounds like nobody wants code bases to be rewritten every year, 80%. So this seems like the stupidest thing to do just from a business practicality standpoint. Any leverage or power you have. We haven't even
gotten to the stupid things yet. We're just getting started. We're still set dressing. Like we're building up the scene right now. So here's where things start to fall apart.
Oh, I didn't know we weren't falling apart yet.
No, we were just setting up the scenario, man. You have no idea how crazy this gets. So,
all right, good.
Matt is convinced he can get a trademark licensing fee out of WP Engine.
Okay.
He pushes this with them constantly. There is a big event coming up, the WordCamp event. Obviously, Matt's going to keynote because it's WordCamp. One of the 3 title sponsors, like the big sponsors, is WP Engine.
Okay.
At any point, he could have booted them as a sponsor, pulled anyone else in. He has claimed that one of the weirdest claims he made was that he doesn't view sponsoring WordCamp as a meaningful contribution because there are more companies that want those slots than there are slots. And since the WordPress Foundation is a nonprofit, they can't make money on the event. So they have no incentive to make more money on the event. So they can't raise the prices. They don't want to book more booths. So it's basically a favor that he is letting them sponsor his event.
What a nice guy.
Interesting stance. I struggled with that one. He spams them with texts the entire event saying, hey, if you don't agree to this, I'm going full nuclear, was the way he put it.
Am I wrong in thinking that nonprofits can still have money and then use that money to like have full-time developers work on WordPress, for instance, if you had some left over?
So you're spamming these guys with texts.
Okay.
And also still vaguely trying to poach the CEO from WP Engine to work at Automatic.
That seems like a very silly thing to do. Like, hey, let me leave my company that's worth more than yours and making more money to go work for you.
He offered to match her compensation and help her in the fight against Silver Lake. Like, The way the texts were worded is like, I know they're making you do this. I know you don't want to do this. You can join us instead.
Okay.
Weird.
Interesting. Yeah.
He goes as
very
far
I was gonna say very like Mark Zuckerberg pajamas showing up to a meeting type thing, but
a few days before his talk, he sends them an email with an agreement form that they have since put out publicly that requests 8% of their revenue as a trademark licensing fee for their use of WP and the name WordPress on their website.
Okay. Interesting.
Yes.
Ballsy.
They don't respond because they're in the middle of hosting an event and this is utter fucking chaos.
Sure.
So he starts texting the CEO more. And my favorite text by far was he takes a picture of the crowd in front where he's about to give the keynote and says, one last chance. You can stop all of this from happening, but I can't take it back once it starts. I can just turn this into a Q&A about WordPress. All you have to do is agree to pay the fee.
Dude, this guy, I love him because it's me if I somehow become powerful, but also, you want to be that guy. You don't want to not be the other guy. But not ballsy. I'd like to think that I would change and I would no longer be like myself if I got rich. But apparently it's possible to stay the same. So that's cool.
Yeah, it's interesting to say the absolute least. So they don't respond. He then goes nuclear on the stage, explaining that WP Engine is a cancer that is taking and not giving back to the WordPress ecosystem.
Okay.
And that it is unfair that these brands are profiting off of the WordPress name and trademark without contributing back.
Okay.
And then he makes a blog post calling them out for this.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it's a super bad look from publicity side. I mean, he's upset because I imagine his commercial side of his business is not as lucrative as WP Engines. And I
will offer some sympathy to him. It does probably feel really bad to pour your life into a big open source project and see a company making way more money than you that is not contributing anything back to it. Like the feeling there is probably shit. And I could understand that.
Yeah, for sure. That probably sucks. But that's not like a failure of anything here, except that he's made an inferior product at the end of the day.
But he also made the product that made all of it viable, which is WordPress itself.
Well, I mean, to be clear, he didn't like WordPress was based off of something else at the start, right? We're all taking from someone else. We're all standing on the backs of giants here, right?
I don't know how much WordPress was taken from others versus original. I'm under the impression WordPress is largely original work.
It's not. It was taken from B2, from a guy named, I forget the name of it. There was B2, and then it was Cafe Log, and then it was WordPress.
B2 should charge an 8% fee to Automatic then.
As far as I know, allegedly, and all those other legal keywords, but I was there on the day that I said, I mean, as I said, it changed, and it changed people that ran it and everything along those lines. But okay, so he's trying to get money from everyone that uses WordPress now. So
it's
obviously WordPress Engine. Okay, so WordPress Engine is not going to do it. So how are they getting around it? What are they going to do? They're called WP Engine.
Yeah. So the way things start to explode is after that talk, he then makes a blog post, again, calling them cancer, saying that we can't allow this as the WordPress ecosystem, blasting them everywhere he can, like constantly. And WP Engine files a cease and desist saying that they are defaming, or he's defaming them. And this is absurd. And because,
libel, right? When it's written down.
Yeah.
Important. Everyone in the audience has learned something. Libel is when it's written, and slander is when it's spoken.
Yep.
We're all smarter now. Go ahead.
It was both, to be clear, because he gave the talk and he published the blog. So he got both. Yes. So because there has now been legal action taken, he uses it as justification to do an unprecedented move, which is block all WP Engine customers from accessing anything on WordPress.org.
Wow. Really?
Yep. So if you were hosting on WP Engine and there was a security update for one of your plugins, you could not install that security update.
Okay. So that seems... I'm remembering we're on Twitch here. That seems like something I would expect from someone who had an abnormal amount of chromosomes possibly to do. It is illegal across the board to do that. That is tortious interference.
Yeah.
Like you're interfering with someone else's business relationships. Specific.
Yep.
Like,
And specifically, like the thing that really hurts as an open source person is holding the security of someone else's customers and users of your open source project, making it so their usage of it is less secure and less good out of a petty spite towards another business. That's just unbelievable to me.
Where does the community stand on this as it is right now?
95+% is anti-Matt. A much smaller percentage is pro WP Engine because people are upset that they aren't contributing more and they feel like
they probably should.
Private equity coming in, buying this company, and then not contributing anything back to the ecosystem that they're building their business on top of. Like that's
well, I mean, it's not. I almost sympathize with that a little bit. Like, you know, if my business is a hosting business, okay, like let's say I host, do I have to all of a sudden like give a shit about like Intel or AMD or Linux? Like, listen, I don't care. My job, I host it. Okay, you build it, you do whatever the fuck you want. You know, I'll add some nice features, but that's it. Like, I don't get the whole idea of the responsibility to push. If you do, that's cool. I'm glad that you're putting stuff back. That's nice. You know, maybe some of your advanced features that you guys have built internally, you push back. That's cool. But like, this is a host of content. It's like a game host being like, why are you not contributing to this game? What's wrong with you? Don't you understand that this game is your livelihood? Why are you not putting man hours into Minecraft? It's like, bro, what is wrong with you? So anyway, sorry, that part is kind of wild.
So yeah, it's pretty absurd. And Matt just keeps digging deeper, be it his attempts to poach the CEO and continuing to try and snag her, the texts that he's sending that are now mostly public because they came out in the WP Engine lawsuit, the interviews he did with Primogen and myself, where he both does an okay job convincing people that, yeah, WP Engine is a bit of a leech and not contributing back, but at the same time, showcasing just how absurd all of this is. His quote that he dropped in both Primes and my interview is that the trademark thing is just the law he's able to go after them for, but the real problem is that they're not contributing enough to WordPress. He refers to Al Capone and how, well, they went after Al Capone for taxes. I'm doing that here. Like very clearly showing that he's using the trademark as a retaliation for what he perceives as an ethical violation of not contributing to WordPress enough. How
much does WordPress.com contribute to WordPress as far as dollars to donuts?
Like the ratio of like how much money do they make versus what they contribute?
Like you're saying they contribute a lot. How many developer hours paid go into it?
Like
not open source.
Half of Automatic's dev time is spent on WordPress's open source project. That's part of why WordPress.com sucks, because they're spending all of their time maintaining WordPress itself, not the hosting platform.
How much of the code is from open source non-WordPress.com developers?
So so WordPress.com is a subsidiary of
it's a host. Sorry, I mean of the WordPress code. How much of the WordPress code is coming from just
Automatic employees
source
versus community?
Yes.
I haven't done a hard split there, but it's like a significant. I would say the majority is coming from Automatic employees.
What do WordPress users want?
WordPress users want to not have to think about any of this shit. The reason people stay on WordPress instead of going into other new tools is largely to avoid drama. The WordPress community,
and they know the admin panel and shit, right? They're familiar with
they're
the
familiar
UI.
with it.
Yeah.
There's no incentive to change, and there's so much drama and other shit going on in the rest of the web world. They don't care. WordPress is a simple, stable thing they're familiar with that works fine. They are now all going bad because they feel like the like one place of stability in the modern web ecosystem has been ripped from them by its leader.
Okay. All right. I think I'm caught up at this point. So
there is still so much more fun shit here.
Okay.
The lawsuit that WP Engine filed was very damning. It had
I imagine so.
It had a lot of screenshots of texts that Matt sent that were terrifying, like borderline extortion. Very, very like there's no light you can paint some of those texts in that's even vaguely okay. Like Psycho X type stuff.
Nice.
According to WP Engine, the CEO never actually interviewed or pursued a role with what's going on or with WordPress.com and with Automatic. But Matt is convinced that she was taking the opportunity seriously and was threatening to tell her board that she was interviewing at WP or at Automatic if she didn't get the trademark deal signed.
What?
Yep. was holding the fact that he believed she was interested in working at WP or at Automatic as a threat to her livelihood and stability of her job at WP Engine.
Okay. Interesting.
Yes.
There's not more, right?
Oh, there's plenty more. Don't worry. So
how?
After the lawsuit is filed, Matt is livid and has decided it's time to just ruin WP Engine's reputation forever. He figures out that at this point, he learns ACF is actually a plugin that WP Engine's really involved in the creation of. And he's historically not really thought much about ACF because he thinks WordPress is fine by itself and you don't need something like that.
Sure.
So he finds out about ACF and then puts his whole security team on trying to find any exploits they can in it so he can start dragging it. Because WP Engine is restricted from WordPress.org. So if they find a security issue, they can't update it.
Nice. Very, what's the word to use here? Like villain arc? It's a very, very villainous thing to do. Like Bond villain type stuff. Okay.
And they found a couple exploits and immediately started tweeting about it saying, hey, we responsibly disclose some security issues with ACF. Make sure you're paying attention to know when these updates come out so you can manually install them. And it seems like their intent is to fork because of the WP Engine. Like by restricting WP Engine's access, he now is trying to like steal their open source plugin from them and build their own alternative because he hates them.
All right. Okay. Is there more, or do I get to start like making? Okay.
So today's big one, and this is funny. It's like I talked about, or actually two more big ones. One is I brought up the example of WP GraphQL because it was an open source project where the lead maintainer and one of the other like top maintainers were both working at WP Engine full time on WP GraphQL, and he was saying that WP Engine contributes something to the ecosystem. I'm like, okay. Does WP GraphQL not count? Like, this is a plugin that a lot of people use and rely on. Is this not a contribution? So Matt immediately starts trying to poach the guy who is at WP or who's at WP Engine to work on WP GraphQL. I actually took a call with that person and said it wasn't the worst idea to join because working on an open source thing at a private equity company or at a company owned by private equity is not a guarantee. At the very least, in Matt's tirades, you have a secure job. You can potentially make more money. Not the worst option in the world. And this was before everything fully exploded.
This is the lead developer of the ACF.
No, of WP GraphQL. So the two plugins are ACF, which is a really popular plugin that most people use the pro version of, and WP GraphQL, which is fully free open source. Both of which are owned by...
hopefully you told these developers you should go to Automatic, but extort the fuck out of them because they need you way more than you need them. Ask for $2 million signing bonus and a contract for $1 million a year for 3 years or something. That's what I would have done.
I won't comment on the details of the call beyond the fact that I did say it's not the worst option to go to WP Engine, but I would specifically call out that the drama is something upsetting to you and you would like to see it toned down and not be involved at all. And the author of WP GraphQL, who made the post about it, or who made this move, made a really good blog post where he said that he does not believe in any of the shit Matt's doing. He thinks it's terrible, but he does want the best thing for the plugin, which is to be part of core. And by working at Automatic, the plugin can be part of core. He can be secure in his job and focus full time just on this now.
Sure. So he's joining then?
Yes.
Or has joined?
Yes.
Papers already signed? I mean, that just happened today. You know, that's fast employment. Okay.
Yeah. The turnaround of that was insanely quick. I'm happy for him. I think he made the right call still, but it's nice that he is there to advocate for what's right for the community, especially because over 160 employees have since quit working at Automatic over all of this.
All right. So is there one more thing?
There's two more things.
Okay, for fuck's sake. Okay.
So one of those employees was the executive director of WordPress.org because through the lawsuit that was filed by WP Engine, she learned that Matt was shopping around to replace her. Okay.
Interesting.
So that was when she first learned that he was either hiring a boss for her or going to replace her. And she was very well loved in the WordPress community. She was the one who ran the WordPress.org like open source side and the dashboard and all the relations around that. She was very well loved. So she was very upset when she saw she was being like her role might be at risk for all of this chaos. So she said, fuck this, and left like immediately.
Ooh.
Yep. A lot of people have quit. They have a real-time tracker on their website of how many employees they have, and you can watch it going down. It's nuts.
Fun. I'm sure that won't be around much longer, but that's okay.
We'll see. So they did a blog post when the 160 left, like owning it, saying, yeah, we just lost 9% of our workforce because they don't want to be aligned with the mission.
Okay.
Yep. He gave them generous. It was you get 6 months of severance or 30K, whichever is higher, I believe. So very generous exits, but exits nonetheless.
Okay. Mm-hmm. He had developers there making less than 30K in 6 months.
It wasn't just devs, but yeah.
Oh, okay. Fair enough.
And then my favorite ending here, thing that we talked about on the phone yesterday that I did not think he would actually do. I told him not to do this, that it would be nothing but problematic and petty and cause problems.
Look at you, hopefully consoling with billionaires, Mr.
Hopefully when I press
Theo.
this button, it will still keep you in the preview here. Did it work? Yes, it did. Cool. Can you see what I'm showing now?
Yeah.
This is the sign in on WordPress.org.
Mm-hmm.
You now have to check this box in order to sign in.
This is funny. This is funny. I like this.
He also had a little call out before that said, we're being sued by WP Engine, with a link going to his blog post about it here too.
Okay.
Yeah. I told him,
I like this guy. I like his style.
There's nothing to benefit from here. This is just an optic L. Don't do that. Stop doing things like that. There's a bunch of other things like this he's done. Like, he loves blocking people on Twitter, including people who have contributed really important things to WordPress, like api.wordpress.org, which is the API to use all of these things. The contributor of that got blocked by the WordPress Twitter account.
Wow. Nice.
Yeah. So a lot of that type of petty bullshit. A lot of like refusing to let WP Engine users do anything. Part of where the explosion started with that was one of the things that WordPress.org provides is a feed of like updates, like blog posts about WordPress. Sure. And I should have mentioned before, Matt published all of his tirades against WP Engine, not on his personal blog, not on Automatic's blog, on the WordPress.org official news blog, which is for like, here's the newest update to WordPress. Now it's WP Engine is a cancer scourge amongst the community. And that blog post comes up in everybody's WordPress dashboards because it's part of the newsfeed. WP Engine tried to filter that out of the RSS feed coming in, which is why one of the many reasons Matt cites, because he changes his mind randomly, about why they blocked access to WordPress.org for WP Engine customers, because he said they were blocking him. Why can't he block them back?
This is a guy who... He's like, he's me. He's like, I fucking hate these open source motherfuckers. I hate them. All right. Yeah. Oh, man.
One more really fun. There's so many of these random tangents, but like one of my personal favorites, there's a trademark page on WordPress.org that explicitly called out WP is not part of the WordPress trademark. You can use it however you want.
Okay.
And they added like 3 sentences to it a week or two ago. That's like, just make sure it's in good faith, unlike these WP Engine assholes who are totally violating our trademark.
Wow. Is there any saving grace here for Matt? Like, like, the only good part that I see right now is literally that he really likes WordPress. That's it, I guess.
Yep.
I don't know.
It's fuck private equity. Fuck people coming into open source spaces and taking all the money out of them like leeches. That's the angle where you could support him at all. But it's like, if the things he was doing were hurting WP Engine more and WP Engine customers less, that'd be more an argument that could be made. But like, I sat down with him and lined up like, here's all the ways you could have done this without everyone hating you. And he's like, yeah, maybe I should have went a little slower. No, you should have actually planned all of this. The biggest issue is he feels like this frustration has been building up for him over 2 years. And rather than slowly ramping it up with everybody externally, he expected the whole world to be just as mad at WP Engine as he was as soon as he came out with like very little of the information.
All right. Well, unfortunately, I have to get going for my thing here shortly, but I'm going to give my synopsis of how I think this will go. Most likely it'll be a settlement and people will tell Matt, you got to fucking stop being yourself. Okay. You're not like a small dude anymore. Okay. You got to chill out. That's most likely what's going to happen. If that doesn't happen, okay, 2 forks are going to have, obviously, that are going to happen. Okay. You're going to have, this is like what happened with Ethereum. You had the purists, okay, that wanted to stay with Ethereum Classic, and then the new gen company that wanted to go with new Ethereum and contracts and proof of stake and everything. So you're going to have the people like, I want WordPress to work. I want it to be stable. I want it to be secure. And those people are going to go and move to the fork in my opinion, that obviously WP Engine is now probably going to have to work in tandem with whatever open source developers do not like Matt as a result of that. So I would imagine that part, there will be a new WordPress code base, the OpenPress, if you will, right? So now we're going to have OpenPress, 2 different versions of WordPress. That's put there. And then secondly, I think that probably the thing that makes the most sense is to have the infrastructure of the WordPress.org security updates and all that be part of the WordPress code base, like that organization that runs it. And the whole thing is a nonprofit. Open, and then like basically, so you have OpenPress that owns the code of what, when I say own, I use it very loosely here, but because it's, you know, public, whatever. So anyone can use OpenPress. Anyone can do it. But if they're feeling really frisky, maybe anyone can use it except for Matt. And then they do that. So anyone can use the code except for anyone associated with Matt. And they make their own plugin database. And then, yeah, that's pretty much it. And then you're going to see, then you'll have people deciding which way they want to go. And then
so the harsh reality is if people are moving from WordPress to something else, it's going to be not WordPress. They stuck with WordPress because they didn't have to move. Now, if they do, they're just going to move somewhere else entirely. I don't think that WordPress is a sticky enough platform, but yeah.
I don't think, but like you can't go retroactive on license shit. So they can just build off of whatever the last version of WordPress everyone's on and just like, you know, basically be insured. It's a pain in the ass, but they can do it, right?
Fair.
You can't retroactively change the license. You can only do it moving forward. And I'm not even sure if they can change the license on a lot of this stuff, because remember, WordPress itself is built on some technologies that have their own licenses that probably say you can't go and if you're using our stuff, you can't do anything. That's like the whole GPL nightmare. It's all turtles all the way down. So I'm not even sure they can change the license at all moving forward. They might be able to keep using the code. So I think really the only thing they have to do is they just, unfortunately, they just need to make their own open version of the plugins repository.
But since it's GPL, like they can't relicense the original code. It has to be GPL up and down.
Yeah, I think that's probably fine. I was joking about the Matt can't use this type of thing.
But like it's just important call out that they can't change the license, and theoretically any changes they make should be offered as contribution back to WordPress.org and the like open source WordPress Foundation.
Yeah.
Stuff.
I think the way that you solve this is you go in a radically different direction to a point where WordPress.com and the OpenPress are just fundamentally incompatible. Like that's what I would do if I was WP Engine, is I would start being like, hey, we're going to simplify shit. All this garbage that Matt added over the last year, all this junk, it's gone. Throwing it in the fucking trash can. We're focused on security, stability, and making things work. Okay.
I think the current focus is winning the lawsuit, but yeah, that's a good next focus.
Yeah. So, all right.
Well, one last fun detail. Both Primogen and I were cited heavily in the WP Engine lawsuit because of the amount of stupid things he said in our interviews.
Oh,
it's great.
Nice.
Yeah. So I've now been cited in a big lawsuit, which is fun. I think I had 6 citations in it. Really proud.
Exciting. OpenPress guys, when you start up, you know, always looking for a sponsor. Theo too, right? We're all sponsor hungry. Okay. So I know it's not coming from Matt at this point. So
I do actually have a WordPress company I will be working with in the near future for sponsorships. Funny enough, and that was before all the drama. They were already interested. Now it's like they're in, and it's gonna be fun.
Oh my God, Stable Press. That's such a good name for it.
Safe Press.
Yeah, Safe Press.
Sane Press.
I don't know, man. I feel bad for Matt. He's just me. But how? You know what it is? He hasn't had adults around him to smack the fuck out of him. I haven't either, because I haven't, but that's what's supposed to happen. When you get big enough and you have like big boy companies with a lot of like employees and people's jobs are on the line and people's careers are on the line, you're supposed to have some adult that came in from like, I don't know, Xerox, and he comes and he's like, I've managed 13,000 people, slaps you across the face, says, don't say anything ever again unless it goes through PR, you dumb bastard. Okay. And then that's it. And all you're going to do is for like,
the closest thing never has to that is me. And I called that out in the interview. I'm like, seriously, next time you're about to go on one of these tirades, call me first. We'll chat it out quick, like we did yesterday. Interesting conversation. But yeah, I think
is there investors in Automatic?
Yes.
Yeah. Then whoever those investors are,
yeah,
they still are at fault for letting him just go crazy without like being like, what are you doing, bro? What are you doing, dog? Little bro. No. Brother,
BlackRock's one of his investors. I forgot about that.
What's that, brother? Sorry. Okay, that was my meme. All right, that's it. Thank you for having me.
Have fun, nerd.
Yeah.
Hope this was a fun overview.
It was. I'm so enlightened now. Have a great day. Cheers.
Goodbye, nerd.
Bye.